Hello, and welcome to today's Arizona Hip Historian Virtual Happy Hour Tour featuring Marshall Shore. My name is Brenda Holt, and I'm the Associate State Director of Community Outreach for Arizona AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence and nearly 38 million members across the nation, and over 900,000 right here in Arizona, we work to strengthen communities and we advocate for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. During the month of October, we will be focused on managing debt, building savings, and making better Social Security decisions. We will showcase AARP's relevance as a wise friend and a fierce defender. We will provide tips so that you can manage your debt, your savings, to improve your financial health. Please visit us at aarp.org/moneymap for tips, tools, and resources. AARP Money Map is a free solution that helps you create a plan of action for unplanned expenses and debt. You can also use this app to track your goals and learn new ways that budgeting can turn these goals into your reality. Let's get started with this evening's show.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello, good evening, everyone. Oh my gosh, I am so happy that you've been able to join us this evening. We've got a great show for you tonight. And, welcome to all of you. Now, I know some of you are out there watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, even Twitter. So thank you all so much for joining us on today, which is October 14th, a lovely unseasonably cool day here in Arizona. But there's also other things that are happening today. So back in 1908 in Bisbee, there was a fire that damaged a section of the business district, left about 500 people homeless. And the blaze originated in the Grand Hotel, which still stands today after it was rebuilt. They were able to finally stop the fire by basically throwing in some dynamite. So we are just happy that they were able to save as much of Bisbee as they can because it's such an amazing place to be. So now it is also National Dessert Day. So I hope that you're all going to go out and maybe have a delightful little cookie, a piece of pie. I was just at the state fair yesterday looking at all those delicious baked goods. Now, it's also Happy National Lowercase Day in celebration of not those capitals, but of those lowercase letters. It is also Drink Local Wine Day. And indeed, we are going to do just that in a little bit. Now, it is also National Chocolate Covered Insect Day. So I am happy. Well, I am not going to be partaking of that. Some of you might be interested in doing that. I know there are places around here where you can get chocolate covered crickets on the menu, but I pass on that. So what can you expect tonight? Well, we have a really good show. We're going to have some trivia. We are going to have some local music history. We're going to do a bit of show and tell. We always do Little Arizona, focusing on some of those amazing small towns that dot our fair state. We also have a beverage for this evening, as well as a really special guest. So thank you all so much for joining us. Now, if this is your first time joining Arizona History Happy Hour, you might be wondering, who is that man on my screen and why is he there? Well, my name is Marshall Shore. I basically came here, I can almost 22 years ago to the day. And I was living in Brooklyn and working at a Carnegie library and decided it was time to trade that because of all the cold, the slush, the snow, so much that I was looking for something a little bit warmer. And so decided to do just that. And so traded it for a little 1950 library down in South Phoenix, the Harmon Library. And they are actually in a really spiffy, up-to-date building now, which is an amazing addition to the community as well. So promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch when we moved to Arizona. And there's what my kitchen looks like today. It really is a time capsule of a house, trying to keep it to about between 56 to about 64, 65. And so it's got all that buttercream yellow tile. We have the original cabinetry with the original handles and everything. So that's what I get to make my breakfast on every day. So as soon as we moved here, all I kept hearing about was there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true because every time I went somewhere, I kept coming face to face with so many amazing people, places, and stories. And that's part of what got me doing just what I'm doing today. There was also that post-war boom that I think in a lot of ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that either were stationed here, trained here, or passed on their way to somewhere else. And after the war, they moved here in huge numbers, changing forever how we would interact with community and growth. All right, so I'm also known as the hip historian. Now you might wonder, what does that entail? Well, I get to play a lot with Arizona history. Coming up in November on second Saturday, we are doing a haunted history walking tour. Coming up this Saturday, we're actually doing a 90th commemoration event of one of the most, I would say, sensational crimes in Arizona that people still are intrigued by. There are at least 2 nonfiction books. So we're going to talk a little bit about that case. We're going to show a movie done with vintage marionettes, kind of as a way to introduce the story to people if you don't know the story. We are also going to hear from someone who basically grew up as a teenager with Aunt Marion, who she later found out was indeed Winnie Ruth Judd, and more of her family background that was tied to Winnie Ruth Judd. We'll also get a chance to take a look at the house on the inside. So that's going to be a really special event, and that's coming up on Saturday. On the 30th, we are doing an event at the historic Pioneer Cemetery, just moments away from the Capitol. So that's going to be a lot of fun, a way to explore our history and also your own personal history. I'm also going to be next weekend. I am going to be over at the Desert Botanical Gardens. They are doing an event called Strange Garden. I think this is the 4th year they're doing it. And so I'm going to be there sharing some haunting stories of Arizona. Also coming up on November 13th, we are doing our first edition of LGBTQ storytelling, and that is sponsored by the Office of Phoenix of Arts and Culture. So looking forward to getting that off the ground. Also, later this month, I am doing with Mesa Bookmans. We are doing Haunted AZ, Ghost Towns, and other hauntings. That's going to be a virtual presentation, so you can go through Mesa Bookmans to find more about that. Also, tonight, we're going to play Deep Arizona. So I'm going to showcase that we're doing some really cool stuff, highlighting some of the really secret gems that a lot of folks might remember maybe going to when they were kids, but also places you should go now. And then I just found out November 6th is the date for the Emmy Awards, that I may get an Emmy. So excited about that. So I'm still trying to figure out if I can actually attend the virtual event or not. I at least finally found the date. So hopefully more on that. All right. So you can always reach out to me. Some of you I see have found the chat. You can always reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or email. It's all good. I love hearing from you all. That's how I get some of my best stories. I mean, someone just sent me something yesterday, so I've got some more things to research. So please share. Now, I will ask if you're watching on Facebook, if you can click that share button at the very bottom of the screen, so that way your friends can see how much fun we are having with Arizona history. And now we get to Little Arizona. So I talk about being from New York, but I really grew up in a small Midwest town in Indiana of about 25 people, 2 roads, 1 stop sign. So I kind of have this affinity for those small towns as well as the big city. So tonight we are going to talk about young Arizona. And so it is in Gila County, has a population of over 400 people, and was established back in 1890 when they named the post office after the woman who was running the post office. Now, Young is kind of in the heart of the Pleasant Valley. So one of the reasons why a lot of people wind up going to this town is to research. There was something called the Pleasant Valley Wars, which was a feud between 2 families that were stealing cattle. But this is one of those towns where change doesn't happen quickly. I mean, they only got electricity back in 1965 and cell phone service back in the late 2000s. So it's one of those places where you can still go and there are no chain restaurants. It's all going to be little mom and pop places. Now, a lot of people go because of that Pleasant Valley War history. And so they get a chance to learn more about that. And, but I like to think, the history of so much is not just that one story, but there are so many other people. And so you can explore some of that other history through the Young Cemetery. But also, even before that, there are other folks. Not far away are the ruins of the Sierra Anchas. And so you can easily get to the Pueblo Canyon group, which is a great ruin that you can still visit today. One that's a lot harder to get to because it's so high up and you pretty much have to climb up the side of the mountain, is Devil's Chasm. So those are both great places to go visit to kind of get that history. Now, if you do want to go visit Young, now be aware that the road is not paved all the way there. So you've got some places where you might need to have a little bit higher, maybe even a 4-wheel drive to be able to get there. But once you get there, you have such lush digs as places like this Cherry Creek Lodge. There's some great places to stay there. Now, you can also stop off and have pizza, wine. They have a vineyard right there, the Bruzy Vineyard. So you can go hang out there with a lot of the locals and see what they think about Young Arizona. So, it would not be a happy hour without a beverage. And tonight is no exception because we have a really tasty treat. So PJ kind of came up with this whole idea of, we should celebrate by having some wine. So he went out and found Arizona Angel dark chocolate wine. So that's what we're going to be enjoying this evening. And so, let me point. Oh, and I think my bartender is ready. So let's see if indeed. Oh, it looks like he's having some issues. So we have no bartender this evening. So I have to pour my own. Oh my gosh. How horrible is that? So here we go. A little bit of that chocolate wine. I mean, it's such a beautiful deep red color and such a beautiful label. So it is indeed from Wilcox. So I am observing Drink Local Wine Day, although no insects. So, and that is okay. Dang, that is so tasty. And from our very own Wilcox. There's a lot of wine down there. Oops, and we're just kind of going rampant over here. Well, I am happy to bring on a very special guest tonight. Why, that would be my friend Quincy. Hello
Hello.
and cheers.
Cheers, Marshall. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Indeed, as we're both observing Drink Local Wine Day. Nice. All right. So I know you've done a lot of different things. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So because not everyone knows who Quincy is or Q.
So, I should talk about myself.
Yeah,
I was born
just a
here.
little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little bit. I was born here in Arizona at Luke Air Force Base. I lived from my parents' experience and mine included Germany, Amsterdam, a lot of places. But this is what I call home. It's where my mom's from, and this is where I love. I can't live without Mexican food and my friends. But I do travel a lot, and so I do have a little bit of worldly experience.
Indeed, you do. So, and I know we've got some great trivia that we're going to go through. So, I love doing this because it's always a great way for me to learn as well. And what we do with trivia is a little unique than what a lot of places do with trivia is here it's more about the answers. And so we really kind of focus on that storytelling. And so we're going to go through all of our questions that are all multiple choice. And then we're going to take a little Arizona music break and then talk about those answers. So that way, even if you don't know, they're multiple choice. So just take a guess. You've got a 25% chance at least, if not better, because you can probably eliminate some of those answers right off the bat. But that's half the fun. So who's ready for some trivia? And I see we have Tom, we have Preston. We've got all kinds of folks here. So thank you all for being here. All right. So who is the first person in Arizona to graduate with a degree in architecture? Would that be A, Robert T. Evans, B, Mary Colter, C, Frank Henry, or D, Oscar de la Salle? So one of those folks was the first person in Arizona to graduate with a degree in architecture. And while you're trying to figure that out, we're going to move on to question 2. All right, question 2. Which famous surrealist painter once lived in Sedona? Was that A, Salvador Dali? Was it B, Max Ernst, C, Juan Miró, or D, Hannah Hoke? So which of those folks do you think spent some time in Sedona? And question 3, which famous rapper studied architectural drafting right here in Arizona? Was that A, Ice-T? Was it B, Ice Cube, C, Busta Rhymes, or D, Missy Elliott? So while you're trying to go through your iTunes to see which of those people, or maybe you're on Spotify, I don't want to give any preferential treatment to any of those music apps, but if you're trying to figure that out, while you're listening to some music, we are going to go on. And hello, question 4. Who is the architect that designed and built the only art and architecture case study building outside of California? Would that be A, Charles and Ray Eames, B, Ara Saarinen, C, Richard Neutra, or D, Al Beadle? So which one of those folks did a art and architecture case study house outside of California? All right. Question 5. Here we are at the Camel's Hump. What contemporary art luminary purchased an inactive volcano in the late 70s to create an ambitious art experience? Was it A, Thomas Kincaid, B, James Turrell, C, Dan Flavin, or D, Paolo Solari? So which one of those folks is creating a very ambitious art experience in an old volcano? All right, question 6. Of the New York 5 architects, 2 of them designed buildings in Phoenix. What buildings are they? So your options are A, the Sandra Day O'Connor Courthouse and the Cardinal Stadium, or B, the Punch Card Building and the St. Maria Goretti Chapel or Church, C, the Hotel Valley Ho and Hanny's, or D, the Arabian Library in Scottsdale and the Desert Broom Library in Phoenix. So which one of those two buildings were designed by two of the New York 5 architects? And Preston's like, ooh, one I might actually know. So that's great. All right. What trailblazing architect designed the original Grand Canyon Visitor Center lookout building? Was that A, Robert T. Evans, B, Mary Colter, C, Frank Lloyd Wright, or D, James Salter? So while you're trying to figure out which ones you can eliminate from that to see who, because I think they were all kind of trailblazing architects. So we're going to go on. Which heavyweight boxing champion once resided in Paradise Valley? Was that A, Evander Holyfield, B, Mike Tyson, C, George Foreman, or D, Muhammad Ali? So one of those heavyweight boxing champions used to live in Paradise Valley. Question 9. What is the radio antenna topped building that can be seen in the opening scene that captures that mid-century Phoenix skyline in that classic 1960 movie Psycho? So was that A, the Westward Ho, B, the Channel 5 studio, C, the Herd, or D, the Barrister building? So which one of those buildings had that radio antenna in that opening sequence of that American classic Psycho? And our last question of the night is, in 1989, what unique cars ran through Phoenix City streets? A, rally cars, B, midget cars, C, art cars, or D, Formula One? So back in 1989, there were some really unique cars that you don't find on the street every day. Which kind of car was flowing through our city streets? All right. So while you are going through thinking about your answers, before you lock in your final, so you can think about those, we're going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break. So we are going to talk about my friend Dan Guerrero, who turns 81 today. He was born in Tucson. Now he lives in LA and is a kind of agent for a lot of higher end Hispanic celebrities, folks like Rita Moreno. And so he was born in Tucson. Now you might be wondering, why are we talking about Dan Guerrero? Well, because his father, Lalo Guerrero. So Lalo is considered to be the godfather of Chicano music. He recorded and wrote in a variety of genres, but he has over 700 songs, recording his first back in the late 30s. He also wrote songs for other famous artists. Now, his first big hit was Pancho Lopez, a parody using the Ballad of Davy Crockett. He also went on to do others such as Pancho Claus, Elvis Perez, Tacos for Two. Some of his earlier music even influenced a musical called the Zoot Suit Riot. And so he also did a record called the Marijuana Boogie. So I'm surprised that's not more popular today. All right. So now we're ready for some answers. Are you ready, Quincy?
I am ready.
All right. Very good. All right. So who was the first person in Arizona to graduate with a degree in architecture? And that would be Frank Henry. So who was Frank Henry?
Frank Henry is an amazing person. Was my mentor. Uh, was born in Southern California. Decided to study architecture after listening to a speech by Frank Lloyd Wright at the Phoenix College, and went into architecture. He later became the first person to graduate with an architecture degree, and from there, from ASU, went on to build several buildings without ever being a licensed architect under a firm here in Arizona, and built some of the amazing structures here that we have and we celebrate. One being the Bank One Valley National Bank Chase Bank on 44th Street in Camelback, and Terminal 4 at the airport, and several other terminals there too. But he, in the later part of his life, was at Taliesin West as a studio master. Frank Henry. He's the man.
Ah,
He's
so you
the
sound like
man.
you knew him.
Personally, yes. He and I became really fast friends when I was at Taliesin West studying architecture. He taught me drafting, a lot of things. So the students would travel from Wisconsin in the summer times from our campus here. He would stay from his old age, as if you will, and he and I would just one-on-one and just talk about not just Frank Lloyd Wright, everything, architecture and art and culture. Really a special person.
Indeed. And I know he actually gave tours a lot of times of some of those buildings that he
Yes,
built.
he did. Yes, he was actually, yeah, he was a tour guide as well. He would at Taliesin West, very humble guy, and he would definitely share his experience and knowledge of buildings and spaces and the architecture community as a whole.
Indeed. All right. So question 2. Which famous surrealist painter once lived in Sedona? And that would be B. Max Ernst.
Yeah, I didn't know him personally, but I am a part of the surrealist movement. It started off as a literary movement and painters, and so it gets a lot of credit for specifically being surrealist painters, but it's actually a literary movement, and it's that's a pretty unique one. As far as how I believe what Phoenix or Arizona is to me, it is a surrealist painting that I live in, and a lot of other people live in as well.
I was like, you can't claim it all your own. I mean, as we're
Yeah,
now, I think the
I can't.
fastest
Yeah,
growing city in the country.
yeah,
So lots of folks are moving here, and I really hope they appreciate those landscapes, getting a chance to get outside the city, because I think that's where Arizona really shines, are on some of those highways and byways that just take you around the state to some of those small towns or other even big cities as well. So lots of adventure to be had. All right. So which famous rapper studied architectural drafting right here in Arizona? And that would be B. Ice Cube.
yes. Ice Cube. Very interesting story. If you think about NWA and gangster rap, how does that make sense? At his early part of his life, he was considering being an architect, and so he studied here um, at ITT, which is a school for drafting and other things related to. And he just recently released with the Eames Foundation his interest to a broader audience about the Eames House, and he's the host of this little short documentary about the Eames and his passion for architecture.
Oh, wow. I've got to
Mhm.
check that out. That sounds really good. All right. Who was the architect that designed and built the only art and architecture case study building outside of Arizona? And that would be our amazing Al Beetle.
Yes, Al Beetle is the man. Um, he has so many fans locally and his own experience from the military leading him here to design mid-century modern architecture here. But he was selected from this program. John and Tenza started in LA, and that was the Art and Architecture magazine. And so the Art and Architecture magazine would pick a piece of land, pick an architect, and have them design a proposed building and structure. The Eames, several other famous Quincy Jones, not the musician, architects, Eero Saarinen, designed buildings, but Al Beetle is the one. So they can design buildings, but Al Beetle is one of the only few, not all buildings were built. Al Beetle was the only architect out of that program to design and build something outside of the state of California where the magazine is from. And that's where a lot of mid-century architecture buildings are and influenced a world of future architects and style and design.
Yeah, and I love that I know this house has been on several modern Phoenix home tours, getting a chance to go through it. So it is a spectacular home. So I'm hoping with Allison, I'm hoping in the spring, maybe the world will be at a place where she can actually get back to her home tours, because that was a great way to see some just amazing houses that you normally don't get access to.
I agree. We have a little bit of a Palm Springs here of like architecture mecca, if you will.
Indeed, you have to look for it, and that's kind of the fun thing. Is, I mean, there are these little flashes of Palm Springs right here. All right. So question 5, what contemporary art luminary purchased an inactive volcano in the late 70s to create an ambitious art project? And ambitious, I think, is even putting it mildly. So that would be James Turrell.
Yeah, he has an amazing story. James Turrell makes sky spaces, focuses on light. He's a bush pilot, and he actually went out looking as a bush pilot, looking for an inactive volcano to create this space, which is called Roden Crater, which is in northern Arizona, like about 40 minutes outside of Flagstaff. That will be, when it's finished, still not open to the public. He's been working on it since '77, and it will be a space to an open eye observatory to the skies and celestial events. And I'm really excited about other people experiencing it. I've been there twice.
Oh, I knew you were there once. I didn't realize you got to go twice.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty awesome.
I'm like, oh my God, I knew you'd been there once. I didn't realize you had a chance to experience it twice. I mean, I keep looking online and it looks just amazing, the little bits and pieces that you can see online. And I'm sure those photos do not do it justice.
Yeah, the photos, actually, my friend Jason Ayers showed me the photos back in 2002 or 3 or something like that. And I saw the photos and I have to go there. And he told me it was not open. And so I made a visit. And then the second time I went back, I was hired by the Kanye West production crew production to film his Sunday Mass there, which he and James Turrell are friends. He donated 10 million. I guess that's what you get, is a private invite, and you can do what you want. And so, yeah, we did a film production video IMAX movie at Roden Crater. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow, I didn't realize it was an IMAX. It's like, that's something I would really love to see, the IMAX movie, because who knows when it's ever going to be open to the public. So
there was a quick release, but there's no DVD or anything like that. It did air at Arizona Mills locally and several other places across the nation, but it wasn't a mass-produced or publicized event.
I was going to say, because I'm like, I would have gone if I had known.
Yeah.
All right. So, question 6, of the New York Five architects, two of them designed buildings right here in Phoenix. What buildings are they? And it would be A, Sandra Day O'Connor Courthouse and the Cardinal Stadium.
Two definitely unique buildings. Richard Meyer is one of the world architects that had the largest commission at the time, which I'm not sure if anyone's uh, beat his $1 billion commission for the Getty Museum. So our government, GSA, created a program to hire prominent architects to design buildings, and so our Sandra Day O'Connor building is designed by him. And there's some Frank Lloyd Wright influences in there. I'm sure he studied the pro bono work that Frank Lloyd Wright did for our state capitol, but I believe he incorporated them in the Sandra Day O'Connor building. And so the other one of the five, Peter Eisman, he designed a sports facility, the Cardinal Stadium. And it is an abstract piece of work of architecture, definitely a stadium, but it's noted as being the coil of a rattlesnake. And that's, you can see the texture of it in that building, yeah, and from certain angles. Not my favorite, but it is important as far as architecture, and I'm glad we have them here.
Well, I think also in terms of just stadium architecture, I mean, it was really the first time in an enclosed building he didn't want to use AstroTurf.
Yes.
So the field actually is able to roll out so it can get sunshine before it gets rolled back in and played on.
And it's an outdoor, space to use as well. That is one of the clever things about it, is that retractable floor or grass. Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
All right. So what trailblazing architect designed the original Grand Canyon Visitor Center and Lookout Building? And it would be the amazing Mary Colter.
Yes. You have an interesting story of more recent information about her working. She was born in Pittsburgh, got hired to do the designs for several buildings at the Grand Canyon that are still standing. Regionalism, using some of the ideas of the indigenous people and graphic design. But what is this new controversy?
So there's a new controversy in the fact that she may not have designed as many buildings as people give her credit for. That I guess someone did a presentation at the Arizona Historical Society kind of talking about how she may have been taking credit for other people's work. So and actually, so strangely enough, so that my background, which is the Phoenix Laundry Building, which is down on 7th Avenue at 5 Points, the guy who designed that building did El Tovar, and she did the interiors. So I had always heard people say that she had done El Tovar. And I'm like, oh, well, if it's just a mistaken of they just saw her name, assumed she had done the entire building, I don't know. So it's like, and I think it's still one of those things that there's not enough conclusive evidence to say as much. So, that's always a hard thing when you're looking back in terms of who actually designed something, who actually did those final drawings. So there's so much error or places to find wiggle room in terms of that. So that I think there's more people now looking at it with a more critical eye, but still, I mean, her name was attached to so many, like La Posada up in Winslow. I mean, basically she had worked for the Harvey houses, so she was helping them do interiors and designs. So, and I love the fact that we can still play in some of those buildings that she helped create.
Yeah. Do you know anything about this laundry building? It's in the style.
Actually, we're gonna talk. So when I always do kind of things from the collection, and so we're actually going to talk a little bit about this building. Yeah. So there's some controversy going on with that building as well. So But yeah, so all right. So, which heavyweight boxing champion once resided in Paradise Valley? And that would be Muhammad Ali.
The champ. Yeah, that's a interesting story. I learned about it post other champions that also took up residency there, which is Mike Tyson. I have to say that could have been the answer as well. But Muhammad Ali chose the valley, if you will, as a place of home and raised or had his grandchildren and family come to home.
Indeed. And over on the campus of St. Joe's, there actually is a little
Oh,
interior road
yeah,
named Muhammad Ali Way,
yeah,
which I thought was really cool. They kind of gave homage
yeah.
to
That's pretty
him.
amazing. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So, question 9. What is the radio antenna topped building that can be seen in the opening scene that captures that mid century Phoenix skyline in that American horror classic Psycho? And a lot of people think it is the Westward Ho because of the antenna, but it is actually C, the Herd building, which still stands.
Yeah, both buildings are still there, and yeah, that little bit of history was revealed to a lot of the remake of Psycho and Gus Von Sant's version of it, and he released it in the uh, extras in the film that he attempted to get it right from what he saw, but didn't have the history of that antenna actually had been removed and moved to the Westward Ho Valley, Westward Ho.
Right. Well, and so in a lot, yeah, and so I think a lot, and because of that tower, a lot of people think that that opening scene where they zoom in on a window is the Westward Ho, which it's not.
Yeah,
It,
it's
it was
not.
the old Jefferson Motel, which still stands downtown on Jefferson. And so, but yeah, the Herd building is just south of Monroe, right next to the bar, that building that has Valley Bar in the back of it or underneath it. So there's actually they've been doing actually some really cool kind of mixed use revitalization of the Herd building, which is great.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool building. I guess it qualifies as one of our first skyscrapers as well. That 8, 9, 10, 11 story building,
Right. Because
actually.
originally that was one of
Yeah,
the that was the tallest
yeah,
building in town.
yeah.
So now we have, well, Chase Tower, depending on, I don't know what it's called now that there's no Chase people in it, but
Really? That's a
yeah.
thing?
So yeah, so that building,
Hmm.
there's still some offices in there, but no Chase employees are left. And so kind of word on the street is it might become condos or
No
apartments.
way. No way.
So that,
That's
I mean, we shall
pretty
see. I mean, kind
amazing.
of like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
BMO building there at Camelback and Central, that they're doing that same thing too.
yeah. Yeah, that is a interesting project. There used to be a bank. Interesting story about why we have those amazing buildings. The tallest building, which is formerly Valley National Bank, is because of uh, a Chicago banker, Walter Bimson. And so he was a fan of the arts. And when he came and got the job here for this bank, he sought out architects to build interesting banks around the valley, or not even just the valley, from Tucson to all the way up to Flagstaff in northern Arizona. And he actually hired Frank Lloyd Wright to design his penthouse, which is the Security Exchange building.
Oh, I didn't realize it was a Frank Lloyd Wright space.
It isn't. It isn't. He hired him to redesign that his house that was on top
Okay.
of the Security Exchange building,
Right.
and it never, it was a unbuilt project, but he was interested in these architects building and inspiring this new space to people who are moving to the west. And so the Frank Henry building on 44th in Camelback, which formerly was Valley National, it's Chase Bank now, is in the style or in the vein of Frank Lloyd Wright, was a commission that Walter Bimson set forth. Hmm.
Ah. Well, and it's interesting because I think when you even look at even just downtown, it's like you got the securities building that has his penthouse above it, but then also at the what is now the Hilton Garden Inn, you have the first offices of Valley National Bank, which are now a hotel. But he actually then added a floor with a little bit of an
Yeah,
angle room
exactly.
onto it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so I mean, we're still lucky to have some of those amazing buildings still floating around. All right. So back in 1989, that would be a very different car if it was 1889. So back in 1989, what unique cars ran through city streets? And that would be Formula One. Those Indy cars racing through Central Phoenix must have been quite a sight.
And a sound experience as well. They're not
Yeah,
quiet cars.
they are not quiet at all.
Yeah, that's something I got to experience the building, not actually at the race, but just some of the structures they built, which is interesting. The pit buildings were and are the on the property of the Sandra Day O'Connor building that Richard Meyer eventually built there. So those pits after the races, I believe they had several races after that. Um, but the pits remained until like 91 or something to that. And it's in my opinion that Richard Meyer knew that they had to demolish that piece of that building and on that property and incorporated them on the south side of the Richard Meyer building. It's
Oh, is
kind of
that where there's like
reminiscent.
that other little structure inside?
It's kind of a framework. Looks like it's supporting structure, but it is a part of the inside and outside, and that's where the GSA offices are on that south side on
Oh.
Jefferson. Yeah,
So, and I love the fact that, I mean, it's like Arizona really kind of came of age in the car. I mean, that's why we had so much neon. We're going back to being a hotbed of neon preservation. And I mean, it's like you've got the Art Car Museum in Southern Arizona. You've got, I mean, there's so many kind of cool things floating around. The fact that we had Indy cars running through our streets, the fact that we've still got the International Raceway. And so are you doing any sort of racing or anything?
I am. There is the SCCA Sports Car Club of America puts on a rallycross racing event in Casa Grande. Did I say that right? Casa Grande. I like saying it wrong.
I've
Anyway.
heard various ways, and I think they're all acceptable, whether it's Casa Grande, Casa Grande.
Yeah. Yes, so it's a monthly event. It's been going on for a decade or more. And yeah, I'm racing cars out there in the desert. And it's actually a really interesting sport, if you will. Could you call it a sport? But I'm having the best time of my life. And several others. I just recently raced over the weekend, and we had 33 participants racing in the
Wow.
race. So it's becoming a thing. So come out.
Indeed. I mean, my dad was a racer, so it's like he did stock cars and quarter miles. So it's like, I mean, there's so much excitement, and then watching everybody just pouring their heart and soul into these vehicles, trying to make sure they still run at peak performance. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think it became more popularized because of the pandemic, and that was that we had our like focuses to, our interests that we could, and the car was like uh, separation from people. What do you call it? Pandemic um, social distancing. So you just work on your car, you go out the track, you don't need a group of people, and it's kind of the experience. And I kind of enjoyed that part of it. It's just getting out still and racing.
Indeed. And so, yeah, so I mean, it's very social. I mean, social distanced. And so, very cool. So, Quincy, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Now, people always, so I already see Anita's kind of already chimed in. So we always ask people how they did. And she said, this actually, I can actually do a little trick. So there we go. So Anita, She said this
Oh,
was
cool.
fascinating.
Right
She
on.
got 7 out of 10 right. So
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so that's actually really good. So, but yeah, so I always like to tell people, it's not necessarily what you get right, but then the stories we have to go along with that, knowing a little bit more about the background of things as we get ready. I mean, once we start talking about the laundry building, who knows what's going to happen to that, but that's a whole other thing. So
What is that story? I'm looking at it behind your in your frame, and it kind of looks like Quandary. Are they going to turn it into like a Quincy Phoenix Quandary bar slash hotel?
we can only hope that they will. So, all right. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep you on, if you
Okay,
don't mind.
I don't
Normally,
mind.
normally we say goodbye, but I mean, it's like this has become such a hot button thing. So actually, I probably shouldn't have done that. So I have a lot of stuff,
Okay, yeah,
and
sure.
so this is a laundry bag. Oh, let's see how far I need to go back. So this is a laundry bag from Phoenix Laundry and Dry Clean from that building. And so it's an amazing structure. If people get a chance, I'm hoping that we shall. I mean, we've gotten to go into it a few times, but originally Phoenix Laundry opened up in the mid 30s. They then had a horrific fire and they rebuilt in 35 this brand new building, which would have been up to date, would have been virtually fireproof as far as they could make it. And I was wondering, I was like, who designed it? And it was an architect named Charles Frederick Wiltsey. And so I hadn't heard the name. So I was like, well, let's take a look and see what else he's designed. And so
Oh,
Reardon Mansion up in Flagstaff, El Tovar, where he
wow.
worked with Mary Colter to do the insides of that. So I was like, that's why it's such a beautiful building. I mean, he was really out of California and was really kind of a champion in the field of reinforced concrete. So that's what this building is made of. It also has this, besides a really cool sign still standing out front,
Yeah,
you can see, and then it would, as times changed, but there is what the roof looks like. This actually is from my friend Steve. We did when Grand
wow.
Avenue Festival, they would do um, architecture tours, kind of looking at some of those buildings along Grand. And so we were able to get in there and do a tour when it was open to the public, when it was still a laundry facility. And so this style of roof, I mean, they said they would never build this thing again because it was so labor and lumber intensive. But it's
That's
such
pretty
a great space
amazing.
because it really
Yeah.
makes it so open and with very few columns supporting it. So it's a beautiful structure. The business it was for the longest time then Millum Textile Services. It's like I used to work at a hotel and that's where they sent their laundry off for a while to be done. He finally retired and decided to close the building. And so word on the street is that it has sold.
Oh, okay.
And so we don't know quite what that means. It is not on any register. So, we can only hope as people look around and see spaces like the Van Buren, Valley Bar, Crescent Lounge, things like that. So hopefully somebody realizes what a gem this truly is. And I was kind of surprised to find out that this architect that did some really great buildings as well. So it has a provenance to it as well. So it's not just a one-off or an unknown architect who designed it. It's actually somebody who has national prominence, who was doing a lot of work in the Southwest, in New Mexico, Arizona, California.
Yeah, I really like that building. The architecture, Art Deco influences. I mean, some maybe I'll post the glass block work that's incorporated with lighting to go with that new textile company. Maybe they did it, but the accents around the building, it's actually still a pretty cool building.
No, it's a very cool. I mean, even the
Uh,
planters you can tell are
mhm,
original.
yeah.
I mean, it's just a fascinating building. Even just walk around and see all the intricate work, even in the concrete, that you can
Hmm.
still see through the umpteen layers of paint that I'm sure are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Yeah, so it's one of those buildings that it's like, that's part of why we do. This is so that we can let people know, hey, things are starting to happen. This building may or may not be threatened. We really don't know what the new owners propose to do. So we can only hope that
Mm.
they will be good community stewards. It's right across the street from Post 1 of the American Legion.
That's also up on the market as well, correct?
Actually, no.
Or no?
No. So the American Legion, so basically, um, they were on 99-year lease from the city. It is now being purchased by a group and working integrally with the American Legion
Oh,
so
okay.
that the best parts of the building will stay.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
yeah. So, I mean, like the social hall that was built in the 30s are actually the walls of an old house that was there from the late 1800s. The bar that was renovated in 62. They're going to try their darndest to save as much of that as they can. So yeah, so it's going to be a pretty amazing space. They're going to do some housing and services kind of around the building because it's got a large parking lot, which
Yeah.
places don't need that large of a parking lot anymore. So they're going to utilize some of that space and basically adaptive reuse.
Yeah, that's immediately what I was thinking about the Phoenix Laundry building is please preserve the building and maybe throw a tower on there, but don't demolish the building and throw a tower or some other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways that they could be incorporated into it. So hopefully that's the plan. I do know, having been through the building before, there is a lot of space behind the building. So there's still a lot of space that hasn't been used. So hopefully
Hmm.
somebody sees that and is like, okay, let's actually look at preserving some of this building. And again, and that
Yeah.
sign. I mean, that's why I was like, oh my gosh, just look at that. I
Yeah.
mean,
Great.
all neon would have been so beautiful there on 7th Avenue. All lit up.
Yeah, I love it. Don't you do a neon tour as well?
Actually, yeah. So we
Yeah.
have, so, it's so funny. With Vic from Mesa Preservation Foundation. So we've done a couple times, we've done neon tours out through Mesa, highlighting some of the signs that are still working, some of the signs that are still standing, but just not there. Back from when that used to be a major highway that was the 60 going through. That was really the route from Southern California to get to the rest of the country. So it was a major thoroughfare. And so like Grand Avenue and even into Tempe, it would have been full of all these little motels, resorts, and things like that. So Mesa
We'll
still
have
has
to
a
catch
lot of
that.
those and still some I mean, oh my gosh. I was just out there the other day to go visit the museum, which is, they've got a really cool kind of Burning Man art exhibit up right now.
Is it the Gray, Alex Gray?
Yep. So you've got Alex
Oh,
Gray,
okay.
and then a handful of other artists involved with it as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah. So I mean, so basically all the galleries are variations of Burning Man art. So it's a really cool exhibit to go see. So I know I drug friends
Cool.
there for the first time that had never been to the museum before, and they're like, "Oh my gosh! Not only is it a cool museum, but look at this
Yeah.
art."
Yeah. No, it is a really cool. I haven't made it to that show yet, but it is actually a treat to have that in Mesa. That it is a pretty cool contemporary art museum.
Yeah, I mean, Tiffany and her team do a really great job of providing a unique voice. So, so I'm actually trying to get her on the show. So
Oh,
I
cool.
think it would be kind of fun to have her talking a little bit about more about the museum and kind of what they try to do and what they've done. So, all right.
Well,
Well, Quincy, thank you so much for joining us this evening as we
thank you
got a
for
chance to
having me.
talk about some fun history. And
Yeah.
hopefully, for folks that may not have known it, some like aha moments, or even for folks who have lived here a long time, some of those things maybe they forgot about them. So it's
Well, thanks
always
for
a
having
treat
me.
to chat
Yeah.
with you. So I look
Yeah.
forward to we can sit down and actually share a glass together, not through a glass screen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's been a great time, and thanks for having me on and sharing some local history. I enjoy it. So hope you have me back.
oh, of course,
Thank you.
anytime. All right. Have a great rest of your
All
night.
right. All right. Cheers, everyone.
Oh my gosh. What fun. And this building is so amazing. I love that building. All right, so next week, you're going to want to tune in. So we have Bill Pierce, who is a filmmaker and author. He also does a lot with Arizona, or actually Phoenix true crime is kind of his specialty. And so that's what we're going to be talking about next week is true crime right here in Phoenix. And, and I don't think in the list of things, I don't think we talk about Winnie Ruth Judd. We talk about some other things. So it's going to be a really exciting show with some really great, just kind of, here's what's happened in Phoenix. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully I will see you all same bat time, same bat channel. Now, don't forget, you can always reach out to me and say, hey, I've got a story you might like to hear, because guess what? I do want to hear them. And you can always reach out to me, if not in the chat, on Facebook, Instagram, email. It's all good. I love to hear from you because, again, that's where my best stuff comes from. So I always want to give a shout out to, obviously, PJ Vader Barron, who is my cocktail advisor. I mean, without him, I wouldn't even have known there was such a thing as dark chocolate wine from Wilcox with such a beautiful label. Oh, and I just realized the top is actually green screened. So, but yeah, just look at that beautiful label. And it's a local wine. So I was so happy to be able to be like, hey, we're celebrating Drink Local Wine Day, because that's just what we're doing. Also, Chris and Cole, who did that a great little intro video for me. Thank you so much, guys. And so as we get ready to depart, I'm going to share with you Deep Arizona, which is a project my friend Cece and I are working on with Fabrizio as kind of our video handler. And so we are going to start exploring new sites. Well, actually, not new sites, but sites across Arizona that people may not be aware of, or highlighting places where people should start going. So this is a teaser for our very first episode. So everybody, have a great rest of your night. Thank you for joining us. And I will see you right back here next week, Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Hi, I'm Cece.
I'm Marshall.
And we are Deep Arizona.
Hey, Cece.
Hey, Marshall.
We're starting a whole new project.
A whole new project?
Indeed, called Deep Arizona, where we are going to go on road trips around the state, highlighting hidden gems to let people know all the amazing things they can do right here in Arizona.
You mean secret, hidden, only Arizonian stuff would know?
Yeah.
Like off the beaten track, like nobody else would know stuff?
Exactly. And our first stop is going to be to Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa?
We're going to Mesa to see the world's largest organ.
What?
Yeah. So come on, everybody. Come join us as we go have some fun in Mesa, Arizona.